There's a house sitting in a small North Dakota town that was at one point scheduled to be burned to the ground. Not by accident, deliberately. The local fire department had it penciled in as a training exercise. They were going to light it up, let it go, and walk away. The place had no water, no heat, no electricity. The walls were rotting, the structure was giving up, and nobody had lived there in years. It was done. And then Tia Weston came along and paid $1 for it. What she did next isn't just a renovation story. It's something a lot harder to explain and a lot harder to pull off. Tia grew up in Fairdale, Kentucky, just outside Louisville. Her parents are Brad and Cindy, and she has a younger brother named Brent. It was about as ordinary a start as you could imagine. A regular family, a regular town. After school, she landed a job in health insurance, sat at a desk, and did what most people do, tried to keep up with bills and figure out the next step. The problem came during COVID. Like a lot of people in their mid-20s at that point, the numbers stopped adding up. Her health insurance salary wasn't stretching far enough to cover the mortgage, and the financial pressure that a lot of Americans quietly went through during that period hit her directly. Something had to change, so she changed it completely. She moved to North Dakota. She bought a house for $60,000, renovated it herself, sold it, and walked away with roughly $30,000 in profit. That was enough to confirm two things. She was good at this, and she wanted to keep going. What she didn't have was any formal training. No construction background, no contractor license, nothing. She was figuring it out as she went, and somehow that was working. But a $60,000 fixer-upper is a long way from what came next. The next property she had her eye on didn't work out. She'd found something she liked, moved toward it, and then discovered the foundations were shot, too far gone to be worth it. That fell through, but the seller, during that conversation, mentioned something offhand. He had another property, his childhood home. He hadn't been able to bring himself to sell it, but he also hadn't done anything with it. The place had been sitting there, empty and deteriorating, until it got to the point where the fire department was lined up to use it for a training burn. He told Tia he would basically give it away to the right person, someone willing to actually fix it. She went to look at it, no running water, no functioning heat, no electrical wiring worth keeping. The kind of condition where most people take one look, shake their head, and leave. But Tia didn't leave. She stood there in that wreck of a house and thought about it. I might take on that challenge, she said. The paperwork was drawn up for $1. Let that sit for a second. $1, not a discount, not a deal, $1. The kind of price that doesn't even feel real when you write it down. But the seller wasn't being reckless. He'd grown up in that house. He had memories in those walls. Watching it get set on fire was something he genuinely couldn't stomach, and if someone was going to save it, the price was the least of it. What mattered was whether whoever bought it would actually follow through. That question is what made the decision so significant, because Tia wasn't just agreeing to buy a cheap house. She was agreeing to take on a project that professionals with decades of experience might have walked away from. No formal training, no safety net, nothing to fall back on if it all fell apart. She'd made a profit on one renovation. That didn't mean she was ready for this, and she knew it. I knew that it would be a lot of work, she said later. But my mindset was that houses are expensive right now. Even if I was to spend like $30,000 on it, I would still be in a significantly better place than if I was to buy just a normal house. That was the logic she ran on. Practical, clear-eyed, and just brave enough to be dangerous. The reality of the work hit fast. North Dakota winters are not forgiving. She was renovating in temperatures that dropped to -20 degrees. The structural problems inside the house went deeper than the initial look had suggested. Wiring, plumbing, the roof, the bathroom, the kitchen, everything needed attention, and most of it needed to be figured out from scratch. Her approach was straightforward. Look it up, ask questions, try it. She hired a contractor for the electrical work and the furnace because those weren't worth the risk. But the rest, she was pulling up YouTube tutorials at 7 in the morning to figure out how to remove a bathtub before she got started on the bathroom. I got a contractor for the electrical and for the furnace, she explained. The rest, I'm more of a DIY look up and ask questions to figure it out. The kitchen was particularly rough. No appliances, no setup, just a room. The only thing in it when she took over was a 1950s Philco fridge that had been sitting there long enough to become a relic. She described it, without much drama, as just a room that I've turned into a kitchen. The $30,000 budget she'd set for herself didn't hold. By the time the project was fully wrapped, the total came in closer to $40,000. That's still a fraction of what a livable home would cost on the open market in almost any American city right now, but it's also $10,000 more than she planned to spend on a house she bought for a single dollar. Those two facts existing side by side says everything about how hard the project actually was. Something else happened while all of this was going on that Tia probably didn't anticipate. People started watching. Not just a few curious viewers, a genuine audience built up around the project week by week. She was posting updates every Sunday, and the response was unlike anything she'd seen before. The comments weren't just people saying nice things. Plumbers were leaving detailed advice. Experienced renovators were flagging things she might run into before she ran into them. Contractors who'd been doing this for 30 years were pointing her toward better solutions than the ones she'd found on her own. The comment section became a working resource. One message in particular got a lot of attention. A viewer wrote in to say they just turned 74 that week, and that what Tia was doing was everything they'd dreamed of doing their whole adult life. "This is my fantasy," they wrote, "so get after it, hun, and take me along." That's the kind of thing that doesn't happen by accident. It happens when what you're doing is real enough that people feel like they're part of it. By this point, her Instagram had grown to over 350,000 followers. Her TikTok was sitting at close to 280,000 with over 3.7 million likes. Her Facebook page had crossed 1 million. The channel that started as a documentation of one strange, ambitious project had quietly turned into a significant platform, and with it a revenue stream that was, by most estimates, comfortably funding whatever she decided to take on next. And then the house was done. It's worth thinking about what that actually means. A property that a fire department was going to reduce to ash is now livable, habitable, and, by all accounts from people who've seen it, genuinely beautiful. Tia herself has been clear about how that shift felt. "The more I work on it, the more I realize that would have been such a loss," she said. "The house has so much character, and it's just a beautiful home. I feel like with this house, I can just take the time to make everything my own." The town noticed too. In a small North Dakota community where empty houses sit on streets for years without anyone touching them, watching one come back is not a minor thing. It changes the street. It changes the feel of the block. Tia has been open about the fact that she sees this as bigger than just her own project. That every abandoned house that gets brought back is a small piece of something a whole town benefits from. "I live in such a small town, and there are so many houses here that are just sitting empty for years and years," she said. "My goal is to bring them back to life and get people living in them, and every time that happens, it really helps out the town a lot." She bought a second one. $15,000 this time, which by her standards is practically extravagant. The property had been untouched since its previous owner passed away in December 2005. Not renovated and left, not cleared out and abandoned. Left exactly as it was, cigarette butts still sitting in ashtrays, dishes on the drying rack with 2 decades of dust on them, a calendar on the wall still showing December 2005. A time capsule, basically, with plaster falling off the walls and floors so damaged you could look straight down into the basement through the gaps. Multiple people in town gave her the same advice when she bought it. "Go through the clothes," they said. "There might be money in them." Whether that turned out to be true or not is a story for another video. What's certain is that she bought it anyway, problems and all, with the same logic she applied the first time. "Not only is there a lot of stuff left behind," she said when she first walked through it on camera, "but beneath it all the foundation is crumbling, the plaster is falling off." She bought it anyway. There's a version of Tia Weston's story that's easy to tell as a quirky internet moment. Woman buys house for $1, fixes it up, gets famous. That's a headline, not a story. The actual story is about someone who hit a wall during a pandemic, made a decision most people wouldn't make, and then spent years following through on it in one of the coldest states in the country, with no formal training and no guarantee it would work out. The dollar was the easy part. Everything after it was the decision, and she's still making them.